few months ago, Janice and I decided that we'd built a lot of hot rods, but we'd never owned one. Funnily enough, this one came up online, so I just grabbed it. Take her to work. Got a couple little bits of tune-up I want to do on her, and it's just so much fun to drive. You know, get up in the morning, look out, and think, yeah, good hot rod day. There's no radio. You can't drink coffee because you're way too busy steering. It is, at the end of the day, a 1930 Model A that's been modified. It's also sort of period correct. 49 Merc engine, 51 Monarch heads, Eddie Meyer speed equipment. Boy, it doesn't get any better than this little thing. When it comes to hot rods, the ones that really excite me are the actual period pieces that were built in the late 40s and 50s. You know, the challenge of driving something that just doesn't drive itself is why I like these kind of cars so much. It's a bit of a handful. There's a lot of steering involved with keeping it going in a straight line. You know, we don't often have strict deadlines here, but every now and then one comes along. This 62 Rambler came in, it's a little red convertible, and it was being worked on to send it off to Comic-Con down to San Diego to be gifted during a draw.
That's because it's the same type of car that was in the TV show Third Rock from the Sun. Same color, same top, same everything.
Well, the problem was, when the car arrived here, it wasn't what we thought it was gonna be. Well, you know, when we started to drive it, the front wheel literally fell off the car. The brake pedal didn't have anything to do with making the brakes work. So we were sort of behind the 8-ball here because we have a very definite short time to get this thing ready and ship it all the way across the continent. So we didn't restore the car, but we certainly managed to get it repaired in time to get it off to San Diego.
It was very close getting this thing ready because after you take it for a road test, it's got to come in and get cleaned again. You know, the truck was on its way, and it was right down to the final minutes. We had to get everybody on hand. But everybody pitched in, and that's what we do. No job's too big or small. We have mechanics cleaning, the upholstery guys organizing it, and everybody getting it ready to roll out the door. All right, no problem. People weren't that tall in the early 60s.
Definitely not.
But it got loaded in the truck, and looks like it should make Comic-Con.
I think it's the only occupant of that truck, and that truck is going straight to San Diego. Last night, coming back in the dark, I noticed that I could only see about 10 feet in front of the car, and I was driving into this black void, so I thought, there's something I should really look into. So when I brought it in, I pulled the headlights apart, bulbs were fine. So now you know it's a wiring issue. Jessica's one of our new apprentices, and I thought, well, let's throw her at it, see how she does. So you drew the short straw.
Did I?
So I replaced the bulbs this morning myself, because I'm capable of that kind of thing. Actually, pull on the lights, just take a look at the front. You know, I don't think it's going to be a big task to fix it. On a more modern car than this, and not a hot rod, an electrical problem can, you know, just be a nightmare. So flick them on.
All right, there's your lights.
Okay, both are on now. Hit the switch. Okay, yeah, so it's a low beam. Can you flick them up and down? On this car, if you had to rewire the lights, it might take an hour and a half. All right, so it's going to be a wiring issue because that's a brand new bulb. If you have to get in here,
Yep.
you don't want to drop the lens, eh?
No.
There's a spring.
It's a little nerve-wracking working on the boss's car, especially something I've never worked on before.
When it comes off, it
comes off.
comes off, and then you've got to glue the lens back together
Bad
again.
things happen, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's super old compared to what I'm used to. Yeah, we're gonna start with the switch, and then from there, we'll just check the wires as they go along and see what we can find.
All right, I'll leave you to it.
Thank you.
So we got a 1966 Chevy C10 pickup truck. It's been here a few times before. It does a little bit of work every year. So this year he's decided he wants to upgrade the dash. So this is what's gonna be put into the truck. He wants this digital dash in to look after the water temperature, the oil pressure, and have everything right at his face. He doesn't want to have to look down under the steering wheel where the gauges were, so everything will be, boom, right at his fingertips. The first thing I want to do is I want to get all the screws that hold the dash instrument cluster into the dash, get it out, and then I can slip the instrument cluster out and see what I got behind the dash. I'm gonna have to drop the steering column down.
Years and years ago, you could buy an old pickup truck for not much money. People weren't rebuilding them, people weren't hot rodding them. The pickup trucks back in the day were work vehicles. They were bought by farmers and landscapers and carpenters. I mean, to have a pickup truck back then, you worked out of that truck. The only pickup truck hot rods that were around were 30s and early 40s pickups that they chopped down and do up.
Something's holding her still here.
Now, today, when we're redoing the pickup trucks, they are, you know, show vehicles. They are cruiser vehicles.
Oh, aye. Screwdriver. Usually it's just a few screws to get these old dashes apart. Whereas, you know, the new stuff's all plastic clips and you gotta watch out for airbags. I'm not saying that this is easy. It's just not as hard. Thank God. So, this is the old instrument cluster, and we're essentially gonna be replacing all this back part with this. So it's a lot slimmer, everything's inside, it has its own control box, everything plugs in. So I gotta try and mount this onto that, make sure that's gonna work first. So we know that all the bolt holes line up really nice. So that'll be his new dash. It's pretty cool. You can have the analog, but then down here, there's two little LCD panels, and then you can have them just saying, you know, your temp. The only thing is, this face piece, it's looking a little old and some scratching. Yeah, it definitely needs to look a lot better than it does with a brand new instrument cluster. Yeah, we'll get that painted, and then I can start in on all the wiring.
So right there, we're reading 6.3 ohms. Do we have a short?
Yeah, it's grounding somewhere else.
Yeah.
Take my little controller box and find a spot to mount it. I have to put a couple holes in the dash, and we don't want to do that. So this digital dash system has a little control box. It's just like a CPU or whatever you want to call it, brain box. My hunt now is to find somewhere to mount the little brain box. I usually like going like maybe on the back of the glove box or beside it. Ah, cool, Leonard Skinner. So I had to take the glove box liner out and see if I could find a spot to mount it to the back of the dash in there. So now I got this, you know, cardboard glove box out of the way. I can take my little controller box and find a spot to mount it. See, the only problem about mounting it to the backside here, I'd have to put a couple holes in. I can't really drill holes through the face of the dash. And we got the windshield wiper motors there. Here's that. Right here might be a better option. And I know I have lots of distance because the new instrument cluster is a lot narrower. So I'm back to behind the instrument cluster, original instrument cluster, and I'm gonna make a little bracket up and mount it in there. I think that might be the ticket right there. So with it being right behind the instrument cluster, short wires, I can have everything nice and neat and clean. I'm gonna have to open up the engine to put the new probe for the temperature sender. So this system doesn't have mechanical wires. It actually has senders, electronic senders. So there's three. There's one for the oil pressure, there's one for the hook to the side of the transmission, and then one for the water temperature. So I got the new coolant probe. It screws into the engine. So it'll just click on there, and I can put it through the firewall and hook it into the brain box. All right, it's just gonna go right in there. It's awfully close to the header tube. And then once that plug goes on, it's gonna be really close. I'm kind of hoping this is just screw a few things, plug and play. I have done a couple before. See, now it doesn't want to plug in. See how it's going on an angle? It won't go straight. And of course, nothing's perfect. It will not plug in. Oh, that location's out for the water temperature. I've got to find a new spot for it. So the only other thing I can do is see if we can get a thermostat housing that has a hole in it, and then I can just put it in there. There's always a little bit more modification that has to be done with these things. Go around and ask anybody in the shop, when you get a box of parts, does every part work, bolted on, go right away? Nobody's gonna say yes. I'm pretty good at modifying stuff, so I think it'll turn out pretty good. So, off to see if I can get one of those fancy thermostat housings that has a boss in it.
So the old Ford hot rod that Dave drives around, one of the low beam lights isn't working. So Tommy brought over his multimeter, and we're gonna take a look at the wiring and see what's going on.
We're both new hires. We also went to school together, so it's kind of cool to work together. Have it set to resistance.
One of the problems we've had for the last 30 years is getting fresh blood who want to do the kind of work that we do here.
Let's get a better connection. She's jumping a little.
It's not the ordinary stuff. It's not plugging a car into a computer and the computer telling you which little box to replace. There's a lot of hand skills involved. There's a lot of ability to think your way through problems. It's a whole different world.
So right there, we're reading 6.3 ohms.
It's grounding somewhere else.
Yeah.
So we found that there was more resistance than what there should have been, which indicates a problem.
We have a short to ground somewhere in the harness.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. If you need a hand, just let me know, all right?
All right, I will for sure bug you.
Right now, I'm just at the stage of trying to make all the spaghetti hook up to the box. Running everything where it needs to go and hook it all up nice. All the connections, it's just a piece of wire, and usually you can just spin it, and there's a little set screw that'll sandwich the wire. For me, I like to solder all the ends so that the wire's hard. So that set screw is gonna bite into it and hold it. It's not just a bunch of little wires that get smushed together and could come loose. So there's a whole lot of wires that gotta be hooked up.
So Greg is going to accompany the third rock from the sun, Rambler, down to Comic-Con.
I'm gonna give the guys this stuff before I go.
I don't think Greg figured when he started restoring vehicles that he would ever be hobnobbing with the pantheon of Marvel superheroes, but that's what he's doing tomorrow.
Oh, Kim, can you buzz Mike to come down? Oh, I'm kind of excited to head to Comic-Con.
I think it's going to be a whole new experience for him because I don't know that he really knows what Comic-Con is.
You got a list? You know what? I love the comic book things. I grew up with the Superman, the Captain Americas, the Wonder Womans. That was my favorite.
Everybody gets a list? Well, yeah, of course I'm feeling a little resentment. I did all the work, hit that deadline, and I would have liked to have gone there.
I'm heading out, so crack the whip.
I don't know what he's going to be dressed as while he's down there. Maybe Thor.
Yay!
Have a good trip.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous that he went to Comic-Con without me.
All right.
Comic-Con, Comic-Con, Kamikaze.
Off to Comic-Con, San Diego.
Oh, Comic-Con, because it's comics?
Yeah, Comic-Con.
Oh, okay.
Rush hour to the airport. Can't wait.
It looks so beautiful, and we spent so much time in this car. The minute I walked through, it's like seeing a family member.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're in sunny San Diego at Comic-Con. I'm excited to be down here. It's crazy here. It's so busy. There's so many people in character around. and we're here with the 62 Rambler. They got it dropped off, set up for the third rock from the sun giveaway. You know, it's one exactly like the car they used in the show. And the car looks fantastic. I get to meet with French Stewart, one of the stars of Third Rock from the Sun. I was a huge fan, so it's great that I'm going to be able to meet him and reveal the 62 Rambler to him. This is awesome. Thank God Dave couldn't come.
You know, I was telling people, we spent so much time in this car. The minute I walked through, it's like seeing a family member.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, the first thing I want to say is I'm a huge fan. I have been for a long time. Yeah, when they called us, say, hey, can you guys do something with this car? And I was like, get this car to us now because we want to do it.
Oh, that's so fun.
It was just awesome.
Was it fun working on the car?
Yeah, it was. It was crunch time, of course. Never goes easy.
Yeah, I can't imagine finding parts for like a 1962 Rambler would be the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, if you had to saw my parts department scratching his head.
But it looks so beautiful. It's hard to believe people used to make cars like this. Now I look at a car, I lift up the hood, and it might as well be a spaceship from Mars. I'm like, I'm not touching anything. I used to be able to, like, do, you know, change out plugs and do things, but not anymore. And it brings back a lot of memories. It's been 25 years. I remember when we had our 100th episode, they made a cake that looked like the Rambler.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We didn't even want to eat it because it just looked so great. We're just like, oh, all right, well. We did our first scene in it.
Everyone comfortable?
I have 3 holes in my face.
And we did our last scene in it. You know, and we did a million scenes in between.
It's funny, neither one of us aged 25 years in the time.
No, not me. It's great to bring the show to a whole new generation of people. And you at home can watch it on Cozy TV. Just put on your jams, kick back, little pie. I don't know what you eat.
You know what? He's just a great, funny man.
Well, the thing about the Rambler is that every now and then it's gonna overheat. But when life gives you lemons, you just shut up and eat those damn lemons.
He's funny, charismatic. I mean, everything you would think he would be. It was just fantastic. And it's pretty cool to know that the car was another character in the show, and it was an important part of it.
And there's our issue right there. It was completely disconnected.
Poor guy never had a working gas gauge. He had a little stick to check his fuel level. We can tell him he can retire the stick. We've got a working fuel gauge now.
So Dave's old Ford hot rod, since we only had one of the lights working, we knew that something had happened along the wiring. Now to start checking wires. I started at the headlight unit itself, kind of backtracked down. And there's our issue right there. It was just completely disconnected. And going farther into the wire loom, I found the other half of the connection where it splits off. So now I'm just gonna have to reconnect these, and then he should have both low beams working. So the fix was to take the wires, kind of trim them back a little bit, and then just reconnect them via these butt connectors that we had. And just reconnecting the grounds that we took off for the diagnostic process, and then we'll check and see if this works.
Hey, you want to flick them on?
Sure.
And we got a high-low beam on this?
Yeah, let me just get in there.
Good.
To see those lights come on, I was extremely relieved.
So it might be a little safer to drive at night now.
A little bit safer.
Yeah.
So the 66 Chevy C10, I found a thermostat housing that has a hole in it. That's to put the temperature probe in. This is the thermostat housing, and we got the probe in there. So now I'm just gonna plug in the wire that goes to the control box. So all the wiring is done, all the sensors are in. Barry got the bezel all painted up, nice satin black, like the customer wanted. So on the back, there's just one plug. So it plugs into there, and then that's it. It'll be plug and play. Dash is in, we're ready to power it up. And make sure all the gauges are giving me proper feedback. So the temperature's at 0, and the oil's at 0 because the engine's not running. My fuel gauge is working, it's just under a quarter tank, and it's telling me my volts now. This truck never had all this stuff in it. It just had like an old sweeping speedometer. It didn't have all the engine management that you really need to know what's going on under the hood. Now it's just taking the truck for a physical drive to calibrate the speedometer. To program the speedometer odometer, you hold down the button and your pulses are at 0. So when you take off, you start to go this measured mile. This box doesn't know this transmission or the wheel size, so once you start to drive it, it counts the pulses. So when I get to that mile, I hit that program button again, and the instrument cluster, speedometer, odometer is totally programmed and ready to go. So the dash is in, we've got all the gauges calibrated. It went really well. It's a very nice kit to work with. So everything looks really great. Temperature's falling within operating range. Lots of oil pressure, voltmeter's working. The poor guy never really had a working gas gauge. He had like a little stick in the back that he would dip in the tank to check his fuel level. We can tell him he can retire the stick. We've got a working fuel gauge now.